among some of the attorneys that I have talked to during the lunch break, it said, well,
solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you give to the court today should be the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, and nothing but the truth. You know, ma'am, if you would, please state and spell your name for the record.
Sure. Kathleen Gough, K-A-T-H-L-E-E-N. Last name is Gough, G-O-U-G-H.
Ms. Gough, can you tell me, where are you currently employed?
I am employed at GE. Used to be GE Energy, now GE Power and Water.
Is that also known as General Electric?
Yes, it is.
All right. And how long have you worked for GE?
I've worked for them for 15 years.
What do you do in your capacity as an employee for GE?
I am an IT security investigator.
Can you tell the jury a little bit about what an IT security investigator does?
Sure. Whenever we have any kind of internal issues, whether it's an HR matter or a legal matter, I work with the lawyers to develop any electronic evidence that we may need to support any kind of matter that comes up.
All right. How long have you been employed with GE?
15 years.
15 years? Okay. And during your 15 years of employment, did you ever have an occasion to work with or get to know the defendant, Andrea Sneiderman?
No, I have not.
Okay. Did you ever have the occasion to work with or get to know another GE employee named Hemi Newman?
No.
Okay. Are you even based in Atlanta?
I am not.
Okay. Were you based in Atlanta in 2010?
No.
Okay.
Where are you based?
Cincinnati.
All right, go ahead.
Thank you. Did you fly in for this occasion?
I did.
Thank you. As part of your employment with GE, were you asked to do anything in connection with the investigation into the murder of Russell Sneiderman?
Yes, we were asked to gather emails, the laptops, any electronic data that may have been accessed or used by both parties, Mr. Newman and Ms. Sneiderman.
Okay, well, let me stop you there. You referenced emails. Does GE have an employee email communication or network for an internal use?
Yes, we do.
Okay, and tell me about that.
Every employee and contractor has their own email address. It's typically first name dot last name at ge.com. We utilize the Microsoft Outlook system, and it's our email system.
Well, let me ask you a general question then. Sure. If someone comes to you in your capacity as a forensic investigator for GE and asks about recovering emails, what is it that you can do or that you attempt to do in order to comply with that request?
Sure, we can conduct what's called an X-merge, or harvesting of any emails that are still currently sitting on the server. So if it's out on the server, we can pull it down. If it's been deleted, we have a short period of time that we can pull those deleted files off. It's typically about 7 days. So that's what we do. We just conduct the X-merge and pull any active emails off.
Okay. Were you asked to gather emails in connection with this investigation?
Yes, we were.
And whose emails were you asked to secure?
Mr. Newman and Ms. Sneiderman.
Can you tell me, do you know what Andrea Sneiderman's GE email address was in 2010 during the time of her employment with GE?
I believe it was Andrea.Sneiderman at ge.com.
And ge.com, is that consistently the end, or how would you describe the...
It's our GE domain. It's our email domain name.
So typically, GE employees would have an email address with a ge.com on the end?
Correct.
Okay. What about Hemi Newman? Did Hemi Newman have an address assigned to him as part of his employment for GE?
Yes, he did.
And what was his address?
I believe it was Hemi.Newman at ge.com.
All right. And were you able to comply with the request to gather information, emails in particular, from both Ms. Sneiderman and Mr. Newman's email addresses from the internal GE server?
Yes, we were able to harvest the active emails on the server.
Okay. Were there an awful lot of emails?
I'll be honest with you, I didn't look at them, so I can't, I don't know.
All right. Your Honor, I'm identifying and showing what has been previously stipulated to with a caveat by the defense. The 3A and 3B are the GE emails from Andrea Sneiderman and Hemi Newman that were recovered. It is previously stipulated to you.
And this is 3A and 3B?
It is, Your Honor.
Who's witnessing that?
That's fine, Your Honor, and that is correct. We just would ask the court to allow us to reviewed briefly the folders themselves later. We have been given the materials earlier, and just on the outside chance that a page might have gotten lost in the copy or something, we just would like to have the opportunity to go over with the state. I have no reason to think there's anything deficient in them, but we would just like that opportunity, obviously not taking up the jury or the court's time to do that. But with that caveat, we do stipulate that.
All right, I will give you that opportunity. Are those pages numbered?
They are, Your Honor. 3A is bait stamp page 3806 through 4601. And 3B is bait stamp page 4602 through 5281.
Thank you.
The bait stamp pages refers to the number provided to the defense in pretrial discovery.
All right. You may continue. You may publish them to the jury if you wish.
Thank you, Your Honor. Ms. Goff, tell me, was there anything besides the emails that we just talked about that you gathered as far as documents in response to a request through the investigation into the murder of Russell Sneiderman?
We gathered travel and living expense statements. We gathered, obviously, the laptops and electronic media that was associated with both parties. And then we also gathered access records into the buildings, phone records. So.
All right. I want to focus a little bit about the travel documents you referenced. What kind of travel documents are you able to obtain if sometime after a point of travel, someone asks you to provide documentation?
We can gather the actual expense reports that were submitted by the traveler and any receipts that were submitted as part of those travel expenses.
Okay. Does GE keep records of travel expenses for all its employees?
Yes.
Okay, and are those records kept during the normal and ordinary course of business?
Yes, they are.
Are the records generated at or around the time of the event, meaning the time of travel or the time the employee asks for reimbursement?
That's the expectation of the company, is that you fill out a travel expense report as close to your travel dates as you can,
Okay.
typically within 30 days.
All right. Who is responsible for making sure that the contents of the claims are accurate?
The employee.
Okay. And once the report is turned in, is access to those reports restricted?
Yes.
How is it restricted?
Once you have submitted a report, they're considered read-only. You can pull them back up to look at them, but you cannot alter them in any way.
Okay, so your trip to Atlanta, for example, if you sought reimbursement from General Electric for your trip, after you submit your claims for your hotel and some other things, would you be able to change that record?
No.
Was the defendant, Andrea Sneiderman, was she issued a GE American Express card for business use?
Yes, she was.
Do you recall the last 3 digits of that card?
I believe it was 003.
Okay. And what about Hemi Newman? Was he also issued a GE American Express card for business use?
Yes, he was.
Okay. And what was the last digits of that card?
I believe that was 004.
Okay. All right, Ms. Goff, you turned over multiple emails for us. Can you say that these emails, the 2,000 or so pages that there are, constitute all of the emails that were sent or received from Hemi Newman and Andrea Sneiderman during the period that was requested from Andrea Snyder's employment in April 2010 through the end of 2000 I'm sorry, the end of January 2011?
Not necessarily. It only shows what we consider active emails that are sitting on the server. So if something was deleted or if something was moved to a local folder on their hard drive, it would not be on the server any longer. Therefore, we could not produce it.
Did you, in fact, produce everything that you were able to recover?
Yes.
But you're just not able to represent that it is the entirety, every email that was sent between or among the two of them?
Correct.
All right. I am going to show you what has been previously marked as State's Exhibits number 5 and 6. And on the record reflect, I'm showing Mr. Petrie the same thing. It's also State's Exhibit number 6 is bait stamp 687, and State's Exhibit number 5 is a multi-page document and begins with the bait stamp 436.
The record may so reflect.
Your Honor, may I approach the witness?
You may.
Ms. Goff, I'm showing you what has been previously marked as State's Exhibit number 5 and State's Exhibit number 6. Do you recognize what State's Exhibit number 5 is?
Yes, I do.
What's State's Exhibit number 5?
This is a comprehensive overview of expenses that were submitted, I believe, by Mr. Newman.
How is it that you recognize State's Exhibit number 5?
I had requested this from our corporate office to be sent to us as part of the discovery notice.
Okay. And does it look true, accurate, complete in the way that you submitted it?
Yes.
Go ahead and move State's Exhibit number 5 into evidence.
Any objection?
No objection, Your Honor.
States 5 is admitted without objection. You may publish it to the jury if you wish.
Thank you, Your Honor. In State's Exhibit number 5, tell the jurors, please, what kind of information does State's Exhibit number 5 tell you?
Basically, it's a transactional log of travel and living expenses, so it will show, in some cases, airfare, business meals, lodging, parking, any of the general categories that are being used for IRS purposes for expenses.
Okay.
So,
Are these expenses that Mr. Newman, in this case, would have incurred during the course of his business that he then asked GE to reimburse him for?
yes.
Okay. What about expenses that he would use his GE credit card for? Would that show up on there?
That is what these would be, yes.
Those would, What if Mr. Newman or another GE employee used cash for an expense that he later wanted reimbursement from General Electric for? Would that show up on there?
It may. It depends.
It would depend?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. What about State's Exhibit number 6? Can you tell me if you recognize State's Exhibit number 6?
Again, it's a comprehensive travel and living expense report. I believe this is from Ms. Sneiderman.
From Ms. Sneiderman?
I believe
second?
so.
And is that, State's Exhibit number 6, does that document all of the reimbursable expenses that Ms. Sneiderman submitted to GE for reimbursement during the time of her employment?
It appears to be.
Okay. And was that a document that you compiled or that you oversaw the compilation of?
It was one I requested from our corporate office.
Does it appear to be true, accurate, and complete to the best of your knowledge?
It does.
Your Honor, I'd move to admit State's Exhibit number 6.
Any objection?
No, sir.
S6 admitted without objection. You may publish it to the jury if you wish.
Thank you. Let's start with State's Exhibit number 6. The summary of reimbursable expenses for Ms. Newman. Can you tell me, in looking at that document and other documents that you have reviewed, what was the first trip that Ms. Sneiderman took after her employment began with General Electric?
Looks like a trip to the Melbourne site, which I believe is the Melbourne, Florida location.
Melbourne, Florida, is that a place where GE does business?
Yes, there's an office there.
What was the date of that travel, do you recall?
I don't recall off the top of my head.
Your Honor, may I approach the witness?
You may.
And when the record reflects that I've shown what has been previously marked as State's Exhibit number 4 to Mr. Petrie, and I'm now handing it to the witness. State's Exhibit number 4, Ms. Goff, do you recognize what that is?
Yeah, it's a calendar of travel.
And how do you recognize that?
It was given to me by you.
Have you reviewed it prior to your testimony today?
I have.
All right, and does that calendar accurately reflect the travel that was taken by Mr. Newman and Ms. Sneiderman to the relevant dates that we've talked about?
Yes.
All right. Would use of State's Exhibit number 4, would that assist you in communicating to the jury the dates and times of travel and other more detail-oriented things?
Yes.
You want to, State moves to admit State's Exhibit number 4 for demonstrative purposes?
Any objection?
Your Honor, the only objection I have, I don't believe the witness has identified where the calendar came from.
I'll sustain the objection at this point in time. You want to lay a little better foundation?
I will, Your Honor. Ms. Goff, have you reviewed that calendar?
Yes, I have.
Okay, and how many pages is that calendar?
Appears to be 7.
Okay. Your Honor, if it's just for demonstrative purposes, I understand now the genesis of the calendar, and for demonstrative purposes, we have no objection to it.
All right. If you have no objection, you may proceed.
Thank you, Your Honor. Is State's Exhibit number 4 admitted?
It is.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Without objection.
Thank you. Ms. Goff, you were talking to me about Ms. Sneiderman's travel for General Electric, and I wanted to refer you to the Melbourne trip that you spoke of. Do you recall the dates of the Melbourne trip that Ms. Sneiderman took in May of 2010?
It appears to be the 16th and 17th.
And is that consistent with the travel documents that you were in the custody of and that you turned over to the state?
I believe it is.
Let me refer you to State Exhibit number 5. That's the travel summary for Hemming Newman. There's a travel summary for Hemming Newman as contained in State's Exhibit number 5. Does that reflect where Mr. Newman was in May 16th and 17th, 2010?
Unfortunately, these documents don't have dates on them,
All right.
so
Then let me show you something else. Do I may?
You may.
Thank you, Your Honor. Ms. Goff, I'm showing you what has been previously marked as State's Exhibit number 7 through 12.
okay.
Can you take a look at State's Exhibits number 7 through 12 and tell me if you recognize what they are?
I did. These are detailed summaries of expense reports that it looks like Mr. Newman submitted in the course of his travels.
And are those State's Exhibits number 7 through 12, are those what's ordinarily kept from GE for individual, particular trips that individuals would take?
Yeah, this is the summary that would be printed out by a traveler once they've submitted their expenses. I generally will print one of these out, just put them in a folder in case there's any question as to my travels. This is what they would print out.
Do you recognize State's Exhibits number 7 through 12 as documents that you provided to the state in response to its request?
Yes, I do.
Okay, and are they complete and accurate to the best of your knowledge as to the travel that Mr. Hemi Newman took to those related trips that we're going to discuss?
They appear to be, yeah.
Okay. Your Honor, I move to admit State's Exhibits number 7 through 12.
Any objection? All right, they're admitted without objection. You may publish 7 through 12 to the jury if you wish.
Thank you, Your Honor. Would you stay right here for a moment, please? And I'm going to ask you about State's Exhibit number 7 in particular, Ms. Goff.
Yes.
State's Exhibit number 7, does that indicate to you anything about a travel or a trip that Mr. Hemi Newman took in May of 2010?
Yes, it does.
Okay, does that, where was that travel and what was the date?
It was travel to Melbourne, Florida. It appears to be, it says the period covered was May the 16th through the 18th.
I'm now going to refer your attention to State's Exhibit number 8. What does State's Exhibit number 8 reflect?
This is a trip to Norfolk, Virginia. It appears to be June the 30th through July the 7th.
The second page of State's Exhibit number 4. The second page. Thank you. State's Exhibit number 9. What does State's Exhibit number 9 reflect?
This is the T&L expenses for a trip to, it says destination San Francisco, California.
Is there another site located on the State's Exhibit number 9?
Yes, there is. Minden, Nevada.
All right. Does State's Exhibit number 9 indicate what dates it was that Mr. Newman took the trip to San Jose or San Francisco? Where was it?
San Francisco.
San Francisco?
Right. The dates, the period covered was July the 12th through August the 2nd.
July the 12th through August the 2nd?
Correct.
Was there also a trip to Minden, Nevada as referenced in those documents?
Yes.
And that was during the same time period?
Correct. When you fill out one of these expenses, you have to put in what the purpose of your trip was. In the purpose of the trip, it says Cisco and Minden. So
what, if anything, does that indicate to you about the destination of that travel?
This was a combined trip going to multiple locations. It says San Jose, so I would suspect that Cisco was probably, as in Cisco Systems.
I see.
So
is that a GE reference?
it's a networking company. I'm not sure quite what the connection is there, but that would make sense for him to have gone to San Jose.
State's Exhibit number 9 does indicate that Mr. Newman took a trip to California and then Minden, Nevada from
Correct.
July 12th through the 16th of 2010?
That's what it appears.
Is there any other travel identified for Mr. Newman in July of 2010 beyond the trip July 12th and July 16th?
Not on this expense report.
Okay. I'm going to ask you then about State's Exhibit number 10. What's State's Exhibit number 10?
A summary of travel to Greenville, South Carolina.
And what were the dates of travel to Greenville, South Carolina as reflected in State's Exhibit number 10?
August the 26th through August the 27th.
And Mr. Newman sought reimbursement for his travel to Greenville that day?
He did.
State's exhibit number 11. Can you tell me what that is?
This is a trip to the UK.
And who took that trip?
This is for Mr. Newman.
And these are expenses that Mr. Newman requested that GE
Excuse me, when you
reimburse.
say UK, what does that stand?
England,
United
England,
Kingdom.
Ireland, yes.
Go ahead.
I apologize.
Thank you. Do you itemize itemized expenses on that document reflect travel to both England and to Scotland? If you
It doesn't say specifically, and I don't see anything in here that notate. It only says UK.
It only
so,
says UK?
Yeah.
Thank you. And finally, State's exhibit number 12. State's exhibit number 12 reflects what?
A trip to South Carolina by Mr. Newman.
What were the dates of the travel to South Carolina Mr. Newman sought reimbursement for, as reflected in State's exhibit number 12?
October 21st through October the 24th.
Ms. Scott, I want to refer you again to State's exhibit number 5, and if you would please take a look at it and make sure that there wasn't any trip to Longmont, Colorado for Hemi Newman the week of July 19th, 2010.
I don't see one referenced.
Does that mean that Mr. Newman did not seek any reimbursement for travel he took to Longmont, Colorado in July 2000 and the week of July 19th, 2010?
That's what it appears.
All right. And let's go back, if we can, to State's exhibit number 6. That's the summary of travel for the defendant.
Okay.
I believe we started talking about a trip to Melbourne. Did Ms. Sneiderman request reimbursement for a trip she took to Melbourne,
Yes.
Florida?
Yes, she did.
Was that in May 16th and 17th, 2010?
Well, again, this particular summary doesn't have dates, so I have to, referring to this calendar, that would be correct.
What, from State's exhibit number 6, can you tell me the other locations that Ms. Sneiderman sought reimbursement for her travel to while she was employed at GE?
We have a Norfolk, Virginia trip. We have Minden, Nevada. We have Longmont, which is outside of Denver. We have Greenville, North Carolina. We have a trip to the United Kingdom. We have 2 additional trips to Greenville.
Thank you. I want to make sure I heard you correctly. Did you say Greenville, North Carolina or Greenville, South Carolina?
South Carolina.
How many trips to Greenville, South Carolina were there?
Appears to be 3.
Were there 3 trips or just 3 reimbursable expenses?
I see 3 reimbursable expenses on here.
All right, can you tell me what reimbursable expenses Ms. Sneiderman asked for? Can we see State's exhibit number 6? In Minden, Nevada.
We have airfare. We have a business meal at the Oliva Grill, gasoline, lodging, both at the Hampton Inn and at the Holiday Inn. Miscellaneous for an aerosol, not sure what that is. Parking, personal meals at various restaurants, and a rental car.
Is anything about the reimbursements for the trip to Minden, Nevada that is outside the ordinary course of business that it appears to you?
No?
What about the trip to Longmont? Can we look at the trip to Longmont?
Sure. We have airfare, we have gas, we have lodging, miscellaneous transportation. I suspect that's probably toll fees or something. personal meals,
Can I
and
stop you on the personal meals?
Yes.
Is there any restaurant in particular that's identified by name?
there's several. Cooking with Jazz, Denver Chop House, Fawn Garden Restaurant, Food Stand, Mike O'Shea's, Noodles and Company, Prairie Center, Sojourners, and Wahoo's Fish Tacos.
Okay, thank you. Your Honor, at this time, the state would seek to play a clip of the previously introduced State's Exhibit Number 1, testimony of Ms. Sneiderman.
Is that the same as one of one? Is that how you identified it before?
And identify this clip as clip 1-2.
1-2?
Yes.
All right, it's been a minute. You may proceed.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Prior to November 18, 2010, did the defendant ever express his feelings for you?
Yes.
And first, when did that happen?
We were in Minden, Nevada at a site that I had responsibility for. And that night we went to dinner. And before dinner, we were outside the restaurant, and he pulled out his phone and read a poem. And the insinuation of the poem to me was that he had deeper feelings for me than just friends. And we immediately sat down. I remember the first question out of my mouth is, "Are you happy in your marriage?" And
Okay, what you said deeper feelings, I want you to tell the jury what that was. What did he express to you?
I don't remember what the poem said. The poem insinuated that he thought I was beautiful, which to me meant that he had more romantic feelings for me than just being friends.
Is that the only time prior to November 18, 2010 that he expressed that to you?
It's the only time that he expressed it in that way. There were other times where, in passing or in a fleeting moment or in what seemed like a very silly email, he would seem to be expressing feelings for me. And none of those feelings were ever returned, and I made myself completely clear where I stood.
At this time, I'd like to play a second clip identified as clip 1-4.
1-4?
Yes, sir.
You may play it. It's been a minute.
Thank you, Your Honor.
The next trip you took with Mr. Newman would have been in July, about July 13th, 14th of 2010, correct?
Correct?
Does that sound correct?
Yeah, it wasn't to Lake Tahoe, it was to Minden, Nevada.
Okay. The site visit was in Minden, Nevada.
That's correct.
How far is that from Lake Tahoe?
20 miles.
Okay.
10 miles, 20 minutes.
Didn't you at some point go to Lake Tahoe?
Yes.
Okay. And was it in Lake Tahoe where Mr. Newman read you a poem?
Yes.
Okay. Now, up to that point, so April, May, June, he had not expressed any interest in you.
He had not openly expressed interest in me, that's correct.
Well, openly. Had he intimated to you that he was interested in you?
No, nothing verbally.
You're limiting it. I'm not limiting it at all. Not openly, not verbally. Did he express did he intimate to you in any way an interest in you?
I felt he was being overly friendly.
Okay. And in what way?
Pat on the shoulder, pat on the leg, what normal people would do as friends, but it just seemed odd.
Thank you. Now, Ms. Goff, we had talked about a trip to Minden in July of 2010. Now, I'm going to skip over some things to direct your attention to October of 2010.
Okay.
State's Exhibit Number 6 that has previously been admitted. Remind the jury what State's Exhibit Number 12. Can you see that, please? Bring that to you. Can you remind the jury what State's Exhibit Number 12 is and what that was like?
It's a summary of expenses from Mr. Newman for a trip to Greenville, South Carolina.
Can I see that on the screen, please? And what were the dates of Mr. Newman's travel for this trip to Greenville, South Carolina?
This is a period covered October 21st through October the 24th.
Okay. What were the expenses that Mr. Newman sought reimbursement for the October 21st, 22nd trip to Greenville, South Carolina?
Appears to be lodging at the Hampton Inn, dinner at an establishment called Pulse.
What was the name of the restaurant? I'm sorry?
Pulse, P-U-L-S-E.
Does it indicate who, if anyone, Mr. Newman had dinner with at Pulse?
It says here, Andrea Sneiderman, meal during trip.
When two GE employees have a meal together, is it typical or common for the person who expensed it or actually paid for the meal and sought reimbursement to identify the other person with whom they ate?
Yes, if you choose multiple attendees, you have to list who those attendees were for IRS purposes.
Thank you. And now I'd like to play one final clip with Ms. Hott. Identified as 2-6.
Is it 2-6?
Yes, Your Honor.
2-6?
Yes, sir.
You may.
In your years in the business world,
Yes.
how often did your bosses send you emails like depicted in 4869 with attached flowers?
Never.
Thank you. I'm sorry, Your Honor, I misidentified the clip. I'd like to play 6-1, please.
6-1?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
On October 21st of 2010, did you take another Greenville trip with the defendant?
Yep.
Who made reservations on that trip, do you remember?
Hemming.
Okay. Do you know if you had adjoining rooms on that trip?
I think we did.
What time did you go to Greenville, do you know?
I presume it was a similar time to avoid traffic as the last trip, maybe midday, mid-morning, midday to the next day of a...
Wouldn't that have been a much later trip that you left later in the afternoon?
Well, we left at lunchtime in the first trip, so I don't know. It's possible that I had meetings during the day or that I had something else going on. I don't remember the exact time that we left for that trip. I do remember making a stop on that trip. He needed, we stopped at the outlet place that's on 85. I don't know what highway that is. He needed some clothes. And so I was willing to stop, and we walked in, and I actually remember having a discussion with the...
Do you remember what time you checked into the hotel that night?
I don't know. Late afternoon, dinner time? I mean, before dinner.
Okay.
Must have been before dinner.
Is that when you went out drinking in South Carolina? Was that the trip that you and he went out drinking?
Went out drinking.
Did you go to do you remember the Pulse restaurant?
Say again?
The Pulse restaurant?
It is a dance club, not a restaurant.
Okay. Do you remember going there?
We went to dinner at a restaurant, an actual restaurant, and then, afterwards, we were walking along, and he said, let's check out this place. I found this place online. It was a place just to have drinks. That was my impression at the time.
Okay. Did you go there?
Yep.
And what did you do there?
We had some drinks at the bar, maybe 1, 2.
Did you dance?
I got onto the dance floor myself, as I explained. I've been a trained dancer for some time. Going to be able to dance freely is like a release. I'm very much in my own space when I do that, and so I got up and I was dancing alone on the dance floor.
Did you dance with the defendant?
He came to join the dance floor, did not join me necessarily on the dance floor initially, and he was also dancing, and then there was a time where he reached out his hand and, as the defense has said, twirled me around, and that's it.
Was there other contact?
There was not.
None.
Besides dancing, like partner dancing?
Yeah.
No,
Did you kiss him or did he kiss you?
no. Nope. But I guess you have people that have said that that did occur.
Do you have any idea why someone would believe you were kissing?
No, I don't.
Okay.
In this case, when you're talking about alleged affairs and someone else's husband being murdered, I think people tend to think they saw a lot of things.
Well, and let me ask you that. This is a gentleman who, up to this point in time, has asked you to marry him at least twice that we're aware of, right?
Mm-hmm.
Correct?
Correct.
And has expressed his love for you in just emails numerous times, correct?
Correct.
And you're going to a dance club drinking with him, correct?
I didn't go to the dance club as a drinking activity, and nor did I know at the time it was a dance club until we got in there. But yes, I was there.
And you stayed.
Yep, I stayed.
Did you have adjoining rooms at that trip in Greenville?
Yep, yes, yes.
Did you and he spend time in each other's room or in one of the rooms together?
When we got to the hotel, I remember sitting briefly on the balcony of my room, but then that was that. There was no other additional time, if that's what you're asking.
So he never spent time in your room?
Besides what I just explained, no.
Ms. Goff, how long have you worked for GE?
15 years.
15 years. Do you travel frequently for work?
I do.
Do you at times travel with colleagues or coworkers?
I do.
Is it common practice to have adjoining rooms with your colleague or coworker?
No.
In the 15 years that you've been employed at GE, have you ever had adjoining rooms on a business travel with a coworker?
I have not.
Subject to recall, I have nothing further this witness at this time, Your Honor.
Mr. Petrie, you may cross-examine if you wish.
Ms. Goff, again, I'm John Petrie. We met briefly earlier today.
Yes.
I've got a few questions for you, ma'am. Number one, there's no prohibition against co-workers having adjoining rooms, correct?
Not that I'm aware.
You just personally have not yourself.
I personally have not, no.
And there is a difference, in your travel, there is a difference between adjoining rooms and connecting rooms, correct?
Yes.
An adjoining room is a room that happens to be next to another room.
Correct.
A connecting room has an interior door that you don't have to go out into the hall.
Correct.
They're different phrases, and when you order one or ask one in a hotel or a motel, you're getting different things.
That is probably true. I've never asked for either one, so
Okay.
I don't know.
But you
I
are aware of what the
concept,
phrases
correct.
are.
Yes.
Now, you indicated yourself that these records that have been produced, if I understand correctly, you are sort of a liaison or an ombudsman. You don't produce these records yourself. You work with the entity or your legal team that's seeking to get the information. Then you use your technical expertise to make sure that the records are, in fact, found and produced by the appropriate personnel within GE. Is that correct?
Partially correct. I do work with the legal team. They tell me what they need. I have the ability to harvest the emails and other items from servers or local desktops or laptops. But when it comes to corporate systems such as travel and living expenses, I do have to go to a corporate team and request a report from them versus being able to harvest it myself.
Okay. And in this case, when you say harvest, does that mean you like go into a computer and you generate them yourselves, or do you get on the phone or send an email? What does harvesting mean?
In this particular case back in 2010, I made a request to have rights granted to me for the emails, for the email account, and then I went into that email account and I did a forensic harvest, which is called an X-merge, of that data.
Okay. And so you yourself were the catalyst for producing what ultimately got reduced to paper here.
Correct.
You didn't yourself hang out the Xerox machine for a couple of days and produce it.
I did not.
Now, you indicated, I believe, that prior to your involvement after the request was made to you to harvest the information to get the travel expenses, you had no idea who on the face of God's green earth Hemi Newman or Andrea Sneiderman were.
None.
You have no personal involvement in this case whatsoever.
None.
You have no personal knowledge whatsoever of the accuracy or inaccuracy of any of the records. You know that you harvested these records and they are normally kept in the business of GE, and that's about as far as it can go for you, correct?
Correct.
I mean, somebody can lie on an expense and say, I spent X amount of dollars for a meal with so-and-so, and they really spent it at the racetrack.
Absolutely.
But there is an assumption that they're being honest, they put the information on the request, it gets paid.
That's within GE, integrity is huge. So we assume that what you're putting in there is fair and accurate.
And I'm not trying to imply that there is dishonesty. I guess maybe I was a little too sarcastic. I'm just trying to stress that insofar as the actual history of this case, other than the records that you have produced by request, you have no knowledge of what happened or how accurate the historical records that you have produced are.
Correct.
One moment, please, Your Honor.
You may. Kelly, we're back on the record. You may continue.
Thank you very much, Your Honor. When the request came to you to produce these records, did that come directly to you from someone in law enforcement, or did it come to you via someone else at GE?
It came to me from our legal liaison. At that time, we were having law enforcement go through an attorney within our group, and she was handling all of the discovery requests, if you will, from law enforcement.
Okay. And to the best of your knowledge, did you, at the request of your legal team or the law enforcement personnel involved, did you produce all of the travel records and receipts during the relevant time period for both Mrs. Sneiderman and for Mr. Newman?
I did.
Okay. That's all I have, Your Honor.
Can you redirect?
No, Your Honor, just subject to recall for this witness, she may be excused from the state.
Any objection?
Absolutely
All right,
not.
you may come down. Have a good day. Drive safe. You're still on the subpoena. You can catch a flight out. You may be flying back in, but fly safe. Call your next witness.
State calls Christina Oliva.
Come on up, follow the instruction of my deputy, please. Deputy Buckles.
You solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you give to the court today shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. So help you. You may lower your hand, you may be sure. If you would, then please state and spell your name for the record.
Christine M. Oliveira, Christine M. Oliveira, Olivera.
Christine, how are you currently employed right now?
I'm currently working as a payroll specialist for D&W Fine Pack.
Your Honor, could you ask the witness to speak
I
up
can.
just a tad?
I'm sorry.
Just speak directly to that microphone, and if you could, project your voice loud enough so my Deputy Carmichael can hear what you're saying.
Yes,
Just
sir.
speak a little loud. I know it's not going to be natural for you to say.
Thank you.
But just speak a little louder so I won't have to have you repeat, okay?
Yes.
Thank you, Christina. She's with you.
And you're employed how? Can you repeat that?
I work currently as a payroll specialist at D&W Fine Pack
Okay, what town is that
in Greenville,
In
South
Greenville.
Carolina. Yes,
Back in, is that in South Carolina?
it is, sir.
Back in 2010, specifically in October of 2010, were you living in Greenville?
I was.
Were you working in Greenville then?
I was.
What was the name of the company or the establishment you were working for?
I was working for Pulse Lounge.
And if you could just kind of briefly tell us what Pulse Lounge is.
Pulse Lounge was a bar and lounge nightclub environment in downtown Greenville, and I bartended for them.
You were a bartender?
Yes.
Okay, was it a large establishment?
It was a normal size establishment. It wasn't too big, just a regular bar.
If you had to compare it to the size of this.
This is pretty big in comparison to probably the size of this area.
The size, when you say this area, are you talking about from perhaps here forward or even smaller?
That area, from there to here.
This area from
Yes.
the rail forward?
Yes.
Where was you were a bartender, so where was the bar in the establishment?
The bar was located, the entrance was right here,
Mm-hmm.
and the bar was to my right.
To your right.
Yes,
So
sir.
so if I'm where you are, the bar would have been over here.
Yes, sir.
Was it a large bar or was
It was a large bar. It was about the size of the juror panel.
Okay. Where was the dance floor? If you were a bartender, let me start over. If you were a bartender, you would have been behind the bar, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Where was the dance floor in relation to the bar? If the bar is over here.
I would work over here, and the dance floor was right here in the center of the room.
Now, when you were bartending, approximately how close would you be from the dance floor?
Very close.
Very close.
About this proximity, yes.
About from perhaps here to where the jury is?
Yes, sir.
Okay. I want to ask you specifically about the night of October 21st.
Yes, sir.
Do you remember that night?
I do.
Okay. Was it a slow night? Was it a fast night? A lot of people there. What was going on?
It was a really slow night. I don't remember the reason. I know it was sometime during the week, but I remember the bar being empty, and it was just myself and the DJ at the present time.
Specifically around 9 o'clock, was it still just yourself and the DJ?
Myself, the DJ, and the defendant with her party was there. Mr. Newman.
So when you say the defendant, can you identify that person? What does she have on?
She's sitting there in the brown hair.
Okay, all right. Your Honor, the record may reflect the witnesses identify the defendant.
Record may so reflect she's identified the defendant with brown hair.
Can you stand up and tell us what she has on, just for the record?
White and black striped sweater.
All right. On that evening,
Yes.
when the defendant came in with, you say, her other party,
Yes.
was there anyone else in the bar at that time?
No, sir.
So it was completely empty.
Completely empty.
Can you describe the other party that she came in with?
He had salt and pepper, gray hair, a yellow polo shirt, and was accompanying her. Glasses.
A man or a woman?
It was a male.
Okay. Where did they sit when they came in?
If this were the bar, they would sit right towards the end of the bar, towards the window.
Okay. Can you tell the jurors specifically, without telling them what anybody said, specifically what the defendant was doing when she came and sat down at the bar?
The defendant laid down her purse on one of the chairs. There were chairs lined up all across the bar, and the party, Mr. Newman, came and ordered drinks, and she asked where the restroom was.
Did you tell her where the restroom was?
I did. I pointed her towards the back of the bar where the restroom was.
And did she go to the restroom?
She did.
All right. When she came out, can you tell the jurors what she did?
When I had guided her to the restroom, she looked pretty upset about something, and as she excused herself, she took her cell phone to the restroom, and Mr. Newman was left at the bar with me. He asked...
I want to get into what Mr. Newman said.
Okay.
But she, being the defendant, went to the restroom.
Yes.
Okay. Did you ever see her on her cell phone that evening?
She took her cell phone. I didn't see her on the cell phone, no.
But she took it with her?
She took it with her.
Let's talk about when she came back out of the restroom. Did she return to the bar when she came back out of the restroom?
She did.
Okay. Tell me what happened then.
The drinks were on the bar. They both took a sip out of their drink, and the music was playing.
What type of music was it?
Salsa music.
Okay. The music is playing. They're taking a sip of the drink at the bar.
Yes.
Okay. You said when she went to the restroom,
She appeared
she
back.
seemed a little upset.
Yes, sir.
Has her demeanor changed at any point?
She did, after she took a sip of the drink, she kind of brushed off whatever was bothering her and looked like she was going to have a good time and wasn't going to let whatever bothering her bother her. So yes, her demeanor did change.
So they're back at the bar, they're taking a sip of the drink. What happens next?
Her party takes her out to the dance floor and they start dancing.
Let me stop. You say a party takes her out to the dance floor.
Yes.
What do you mean by take out to the dance floor?
He led her by her hand to the dance floor,
So he physically went and grabbed the defendant's hand and
grabbed her
led
to the
out
dance floor. Yes.
Okay. What happened once they got onto the dance floor?
They both started dancing. And at one point, he stated that she was a trained dancer.
Okay.
And she agreed.
Okay.
She confirmed that she was a trained dancer.
Okay. How were they dancing?
They were dancing at one point, not together, and then they had separated, and it appeared to be as though she was dancing with him in a flirtatious way, trying to entice him.
Explain what you mean by dancing with him in a flirtatious way.
He had just stated that she was a trained dancer, and I guess she was trying to prove that she was, and was dancing for him kind of in a seductive way. Like dancing. Like dancing. She was moving her hips, and he was, yes,
Okay.
she was.
And sort of Latin dancing.
Sort of yes, Latin dancing. And then they were coming closer together.
Okay, let me stop you. When she's moving her hips side to side, sort of Latin dancing, what is he doing, the individual that's with her?
He's looking at me saying, "This is great."
Okay.
And she's getting closer to him.
Okay.
At that point, he had grabbed her rear, her butt.
Her
butt.
Her buttocks.
He had cupped her butt. And
One hand or two hands?
two hands.
Okay.
And
How close are they? If this is her and this is him, were they this far
no,
apart?
sir, they were really close.
Like this?
Yes, and
Okay.
then
And he's got his hands around her buttocks.
yes, and Miss Sneiderman would be the podium.
Miss Steiner would be the podium.
Yes.
Right here. Okay. Okay, so go ahead.
They appeared to be grinding at that moment and
By
pressing
grinding, what do you mean?
body against body,
And their
and
body
moving,
against body and they're moving together?
moving together.
Okay, go ahead.
At that moment, she had kissed him.
She kissed him.
She kissed him. Prior to that, he had kissed her.
Let me stop you
Yes.
again. She kissed him. Well, I mean, did she kiss him on the hand, on the cheek?
No, she kissed him on the mouth.
And you've seen people kiss before, correct?
I have.
Is this sort of a peck like a father pecks a child, or what are we talking about?
No, this was a kiss, like a loving kiss, like a
Passionate?
like a passionate kiss. Yes.
Was it like a split second or a couple seconds? Or
Couple
what?
seconds.
Couple second kiss? Okay. You said prior to that, he had kissed her.
Yes.
Tell us about that.
He, when he took her out to the dance floor and she appeared to brush off whatever was bothering her, he had kissed her on the mouth again. Couple seconds, nothing.
Passionate kiss?
Passionate kiss.
Okay, go ahead.
After they danced and were grinding on the floor, they come back to the bar and finished having their drink. They asked if this establishment was open and what days. I'd mentioned the Halloween party that we were going to be having towards the end of the week. It was getting closer to Halloween time. They really enjoyed the bar and the music, and he had stated that this was exactly what she needed, the type of environment that she needed. After that, they had their drinks and proceeded to leave, and once they left...
Let me stop you there. So they had their drinks and they proceeded to leave.
Mm-hmm.
Tell me about the windows at Pulse. Can you...
If this were the bar, right here would be the window, and it was a window, I would say, from the baseboard to half of the wall. So it was a large window, and it was on the outside of the street. There were twinkle lights in the trees, so it was well lit.
So you could see out the window?
I could see out the window.
Okay. Did you see them walk out of Pulse?
I did, and prior to them leaving, I'd asked if they were okay, because they had a couple of drinks, and wanted to make sure that they would make it safely. They indicated that they were staying in downtown Greenville in one of the hotels, and that they would be walking back.
They said they were staying in downtown Greenville in one
Yes.
of the hotels?
Yes.
And they would be walking back?
Yes.
Okay, did you see them walk out of the bar?
I did.
Okay, tell me what happens as they're walking out of
As
the
I'm
bar.
wiping down the bar, I'm looking out the window, and they're leaving embraced. She had his hand around his waist, and he had his arm around her shoulder.
Okay,
And they,
let me stop you again. I'm
Yes.
going to use the podium again.
Okay.
So they're by embrace, they're walking like,
yes,
and he had
And-
his hand where?
on her shoulder,
On her shoulder, and
Yes.
where's her hand?
around his waist.
Around like this. She's
Yes.
walking like this.
And he was standing on the outside of her,
Like this.
the other way around, yes.
Okay.
And they both looked at each other and kissed.
They turned to one another and
And
kissed
kissed,
again.
yes, and
Was
continued
that
to walk
also
in.
a passionate kiss?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
I didn't see them after that.
Your Honor, the record may reflect I am showing opposing counsel. Who am I showing it to?
No,
State's
Mr.
Exhibit
Clegg.
number 13.
I'm sorry, what number is this, Mr. James?
State's Exhibit number 13.
Number 1313, all right, that's 13.
May I approach you?
You may.
Showing you State's Exhibit number 13. If you could take a look at that and without telling me what's on it, tell me if you recognize it.
Yes, I do. It's,
Okay. Is that document kept in the regular and ordinary course of business by the Pulse Restaurant?
it is.
Was it generated by a computer?
It was.
Okay. Does just any old one have access to that computer?
sir.
Who had access to that
The
computer?
employees.
All right. Would the information that's contained in that document have been made contemporaneous or at the same time that the transaction was taking place?
Yes, sir. Everything is dated.
Your Honor, at this time I would tender State's Exhibit number 13 into evidence.
Any objection?
Yes, sir, unless she can demonstrate that she is in somehow a custodian of the records, I don't see how she can possibly authenticate this particular document. I don't believe she's currently working for that restaurant.
Response, Mr. James.
Your Honor, I don't even know if the restaurant still exists. She
No.
has knowledge and she was working for the restaurant at the time. I don't think it's required by law that she currently still be working for it. She actually produced that document.
I'm going to sustain your objection to this extent. I will allow you to ask a couple more questions for that foundational purposes.
Do you recognize the document now?
I do.
Okay. Were you familiar with the procedures that
I
Pulse
did.
Restaurant kept documented at that time?
Being not only the bartender, I did the closing at night, and these were the receipts to balance our registers and
Okay.
sales.
And did you actually produce that receipt yourself? Meaning, are you the person that logged in that transaction?
Yes, I did.
Okay. And that's a receipt that you would have entered the information on?
That is correct.
And you are familiar, and you were familiar with the way that Pulse kept records at that time?
Yes, I was.
Anything
We each
else,
had
Mr.
our,
I'm sorry, anything else, Mr. Clegg?
No, I have no questions, Your Honor. I stand by my objection.
All right.
She is.
I'll override the objection at this point in time based upon that follow-up question. It's in the record. It's in the record. You may publish. You may.
Look at the bottom of the receipt, and by server, what does it say?
Christy?
Was that the way that you put your name there?
Yes.
Okay, and did you in fact type Christie into the computer?
Yes. Actually, we had a 4-digit PIN that would indicate which server was attending, and that's how I was logged in. That was my server.
And next to date, what date does it say there?
October 21st, 2010,
And what's the time?
9:36.
And the person who would have paid for it, is that person's name listed on there?
Yes.
And what's the initial?
Newman H.
Newman H. And next to table, what does that say?
Dinner couple.
Okay, and why would you have put that there?
That was just in the generic code that we used for guests.
When people were together?
Yes.
Thank you. Nothing further this time, Your Honor.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, now we've been going for about an hour. Before we go to cross-examination, I'm going to allow you to have a brief stretch break, and this will be your first stretch break in the afternoon. It will be in the neighborhood of 10 minutes. Deputy Buckles, if you could assist. Yes, sir. All right.
Welcome back to 11 Alive's coverage of the Andrea Sneiderman trial. I'm Jeff Hull.